members, just any communication, just do it in public. Don't type things on the Zoom chat. Just speak them out loud. Anything for the group should be said out loud for the record. And we have a co-host if needed. So welcome to the June meeting of the City of Boulder Police Oversight Panel. We acknowledge the Arapaho, Ute, and Cheyenne tribes, the traditional custodians on the land of which the Police Oversight Panel and Boulder Police Department operate, and pay our respects to the elders past and present. I'd like to welcome the public and any press to the meeting, and welcome to our panel members. Thank you everyone for being here and acknowledging anything that was in the moment that may have been challenging for you. Lynn, I do see your hand. However, we do have a Q&A function during the meeting, so we will answer small questions in the QA, and then if there are bigger things for the panel, you can please save those for the public comment, which happened in the second half of our meeting. If you wish to submit a complaint, you can go to our website, bouldercolorado.gov/services/police oversight, or you can send them directly to our panel email, which is policeoversightpanel@bouldercolorado.gov. These meetings are public and are posted to our website. And with that, I also like to acknowledge the agreements that we made during our retreat, the agreements we made for ourselves on our conduct, and hopefully we'll be able to post those or just a snapshot of those, but just the way we treat ourselves, the intentions, and the reasons for all of us being here. And with that, I just want to jump into the agenda. And the first thing on that is the approval of the minutes from the May meeting. Do you have a motion to approve those?
I'll move, Victor, to approve the minutes.
I can second.
Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is an invitation to communicate through proper channels. So there may be times, even for the co-chairs, but if you get a request or something regarding panel business, let me send you a text message. If they really want to get a hold of the panel and get our attention, the email address I just mentioned is the best way to do that, right? So please use your official city emails for panel business. Maybe someone important wants to get a hold of us and they send you a text and it seems super important, just encourage them to use official channels to get a hold of us. That goes for city council members and other people in other places, but using those official channels, is the best way. So I just wanted to emphasize that for everyone. The next item is we have a request from City Council. Can you share some light on that, Sherry?
Yeah, so in a recent study session on public safety, there was a request for the panel and IPM, so the civilian oversight aspect, to provide some updates. So there is not any sort of actual date, but the expectation is that sometime probably in late 2024, we'll get on the schedule to provide some updates and information status for City Council. I don't know if it's going to be at a regular council meeting or if it's going to be at one of their study sessions. But keep you posted. And one of the things to know is this gets done pretty far in advance, so it won't be some situation where we only have a few days lead time before we go before council.
Thank you. I know that's something we had mentioned before, and so, you know, setting this up so we do have a chance to present, but also to answer questions is also one of those ideas behind that as well. So any questions or comments before we go to the committee updates? All right, so I have too many screens open. So Community Engagement and Communications Committee.
We didn't have a meeting last week, and so it's been postponed. We don't really have anything to report at this point.
Thank you. And your next meeting is?
I was trying to look for it. I haven't found it. Selena, maybe you can help me.
We haven't rescheduled it. There's a few people who are going to be out on and off, and so I will send out a reschedule hopefully soon. So yeah, please be on the lookout for that.
Okay, thank you so much. And then our next committee update is from the Legacy Committee.
Legacy, Lisa and I met on the 23rd. We're looking through the data that was provided by the BPD, and I'll hand it over to Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Chico. So as Chico mentioned, we did like a sort of initial exploratory analysis of the data that we got from BPD. It was really interesting. We are working on getting it into a sort of dashboard tool that you all will be able to use to explore it a bit as well. We were going to share that tonight, but we're working on some sort of technical issues with getting into city infrastructure to allow us to share it. So just know that next month at our meeting, we will plan to take you through the dashboard and then share out a link for you all to explore it on your own as well. So that's the only update from us for now.
I just want to say that I think Lizzie is also being a little modest because she put the data in a format that, yeah, Chico's smiling. She put it in this format that allowed her to do like real-time manipulations of the data. And I think both Chico and I were quite impressed. So
we were in awe. Great job, Liz.
Well, thank you. That's nice to hear.
Thank you, Liz. Yes, that is exciting. We have always wanted to sink our teeth into some large chunks of data, and so just being able to make that digestible for the whole panel. And you have some expertise that we all bring, so it's good to see that coming in. So thank you. So next, we have an update from Farah. Farah, thank you for joining us again. And she did send out some slides, and Farah is going to update us on the bylaw working group.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Hopefully you did receive my email on Friday. It was just a very brief update, but I do have a few slides to go over to give you a little bit more substantive detail on the work that we have been doing on the bylaws subcommittee. Selena, if you could help me out with that.
Sure thing. Give me 1 second.
All right, we can go to the next slide. Just so for the public's, obviously the panel knows has been involved, but for the public, our subcommittee has been working through updating the bylaws, includes the co-chair Soledad Diaz, Abigail Frankie, and myself. We've had 3 meetings so far, and we've confirmed our schedule, and we'll continue to meet weekly through the end of the summer. So we have, I think, through the end of August, we have our meeting scheduled. Next slide, please. And so we primarily started with giving some structure to what we think the bylaws should look like. That was kind of first. And then the second was really updating the obvious changes in the current bylaws so that they are consistent and compliant with the new ordinance. So for example, terms are different. We updated the section about roles and responsibilities of the panel. We're working through training. We added obviously the purpose statement, and it was just, if you go through the bylaws, you'll see some of the, well, obviously for me, it's a lot easier because I know the ordinance really, really well. So it's pretty easy for me to pinpoint the areas that were inconsistent. And essentially what I did was like a side-by-side comparison and analysis of the current ordinance with the bylaws, and made sure that the language in the proposed bylaws is consistent with the ordinance. We don't want any inconsistencies. So that was pretty much what we started out first and foremost to do, because it's pretty easy and it was quick for me to do. The areas that we are working through right now, we have some draft language, but it's nowhere close to being final. So our approach has been a lot of conversation and brainstorming and writing down our thoughts. And then as we get further down in our process, we're gonna, roll up our sleeves and go more in the weeds of what we think the content should be. So essentially we are talking about the panel's roles, duties and responsibilities. A lot of that was taken from the ordinance. There are different documents that talk about co-chair's responsibilities. So we have the current bylaws that was slightly different than but not inconsistent with what's in the ordinance. And then we have been looking at other examples of in other cities, their bylaws, and then also other boards and commissions within the city of Boulder bylaws, just so that there was some consistency in terms of the responsibilities of co-chairs. Order of business, this is something that we're probably going to talk about a lot. And we're also going to ask for obviously we're going to ask for your input, a lot of it, but I'm going to flag this one specifically for the panel members, because we want to delineate the order of business for your meeting. So for example, today you started out with your land acknowledgement, your community agreements, and you talked about approval of the minutes. So one thing that I want to put kind of in everybody's frontal note is to think about, the appropriate place for public comment. I've been in this conversation a lot. There are pros and cons with the different options, and it fundamentally gets resolved with what's a best fit for the city. So there are some cities that have public comment right in the beginning. There are some cities that have public comment at the end. And so this is something I just want to flag for the panel for you to think about, and I would want your opinion about it, just so that you just give it some thought in terms of the order of business, and also efficacy of your meetings. The next thing that we talked about, and this was actually Soledad's recommendation, was to put some language there about, I put in here executive session, but I changed it in the draft and called it closed session because that's how you refer to it. So to be consistent with how you refer to when you go into your private sessions, I changed it in the draft to closed session. And so I drafted some language about your procedures and how we do that. It's a very preliminary, we have to tweak it a little bit. But I thought it was a very good suggestion from Soledad that we put something very clear, because guys are consistently, every meeting you're going to be going into closed session. And so it needs to be clear in your bylaws what the parameters are of that. And so we added that section. This is a section that is not currently in your bylaws. So it's an important addition. Conflicts of interest, we added some language about that. And then we received some suggestions from Lizzie that I kept, and wanted to make sure that, we incorporated them. And so we are working through her suggestions, but we included a section in the draft that is basically titled official statements of the panel. So it essentially delineates kind of that process and the expectations of, when we're making statements on behalf of the panel, when we're making statements on behalf of ourselves, and what that means, and kind of the scope and the parameters around those. So those are the main kind of high level things we are working through. Again, nothing definitive. We're really just kind of putting everything out on paper like that we're talking about and talking through, and then we're going to go line by line and make sure that we fine tune and the language reflects kind of what we're recommending and what we think is appropriate. Next slide, please. So some things that we still have yet to discuss, and this ties into some of our public meetings that we're going to be having, is the committee structure. I don't know how many of you knew that there was supposed to be an education committee. I was kind of surprised to see that in the bylaws. And so we want to talk through kind of the purpose of the committees, the need for them, and if there's a way to maybe streamline them a little bit. But obviously I put this one first because this is something, again, I want to flag in addition to the order of business of something that we really are going to need your input on, and what you're thinking, or what you would like to see in terms of the committee structure, how they're set up, and what you think actually makes the most sense for the panel. There's a section in the current bylaws that's called complaints and policy review. We are working that through. We're on the fence a little bit on whether or not it is appropriate in the bylaws, but we haven't gotten there yet. We really wanted to focus on the stuff that I talked about in the last slide first. But the reason why I'm flagging it is that this is a conversation that we know is coming. And then just, we did a general format for the bylaws, but we might tweak it a little bit because one of the things that we all had the same impression was that the bylaws were a little bit difficult to follow. And so we wanted to make sure that the flow and the format and the order of what we were discussing in the bylaws makes sense, and that it's easy. It should be a document that, like, if someone's in the middle of a meeting and you have a question, you should be able to turn to, oh, I think that's article so-and-so, you know what I mean? And be able to turn to it pretty quickly. And so we want to make sure it has that ease with it. So that's another thing that we're going to be talking through. And then what we decided to do at the very end, because again, this is very similar to how we drafted and recommended the ordinance. This is a recipe very specific to the panel, very specific to Boulder. So we're waiting at the very end to kind of do a compare and contrast with other bylaws from other cities, and then also bylaws from City of Boulder boards and commissions, kind of more of like a side-by-side comparison. So we're waiting to do that last, once we have a bit more meat on the bones of our working draft. Next slide, please. And so just flagging this, obviously the panel already knows, but flagging this for the public that when we first came on and we're talking about how we were going to do this process, it was important to the panel that we had a public component to it. And so those meetings have been scheduled. We have 3. They will be posted. They'll be open to the public. It'll be a very similar, maybe even more brief presentation like this, and then more of an open conversation to get feedback from panel members and the public on them. And so I wanted to make sure that the public was aware of the dates ahead of time. So our first one is June 25th, then July 30th, then August 20th, all from 6 to 7 via Zoom. And then obviously it'll be posted on the panel's website so that people can access, the general public can access the link. And then just obviously for awareness and potentially a reminder to the panel, you all have calendar invites with the Zoom link in there that Selena had sent maybe last week, or well, I guess today's Monday, so it wasn't early this week, probably last week. So just as a reminder that you do have those calendar invites. And I will generally probably give you a heads up on what we plan to talk about, like I did this Friday or last Friday, so that, you know, if you can make it, it would be super helpful. Next slide. So that's it. So just questions. Again, a brief update, but Abigail and Soledad have been amazing to work with and really thoughtful in their recommendations. They've been reading everything that I send them, which is always helpful. And so, yeah, I'm very confident. We are all very confident that we will get this done. And our goal is to have the panel vote on it at the September meeting. We're really confident about that. I mean, obviously we have the October meeting, but we're really aiming to wrap it up and have a good draft to you in August so that it could be voted on. And this will be a little bit different because you will be familiar with the content as we get closer. And so we do think a September vote is realistic. So I will pause now and happy to answer any questions. The only thing I want to defer to the co-chair if you want to hold off on some of the things that I flagged to talk about on the 25th, or if there's a few minutes to talk about it now, I will defer to Victor on how he wants to handle that. But other than that, I'll answer any questions.
Yeah, we do have some time if folks have a question or two.
All right. Okay, well, if no questions, no problem. But if you think of something, please, just like Lizzie, send us an email. I obviously always read it and want your feedback, but the two things I would like to flag for you to give some thought is the order of business, and particularly if you have a specific opinion about where public comment should be on the agenda, beginning, middle, end, whatever. I would really like your perspective on that. And then number two is how you feel about the setup with committees right now. Do you feel they're valuable, efficient? Like, do you have recommendations of doing it a little bit different? Because our goal is, with the bylaws, obviously you have much more flexibility to make edits as needed, right? This is not like the ordinance, but my goal is hopefully to give you such a great document that you won't need to amend it as frequently, you know what I mean? So the committees is a big piece of that. And so if you have suggestions about committees, order of business, and obviously anything else, please send them, because we're reading them and we're definitely taking them into consideration. As part of the reason why we included the official statements of the panel in the draft is primarily based on the recommendation we got from Lizzie. So we are listening and we do want your feedback. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Farah, and thank you, Soledad and Abigail, for meeting every week and continuing to work on this. And I think June 25th was the first date for the public meeting, so save the date for that as well. So the next item on our agenda is where we go into a closed session to discuss our upcoming case reviews. And since there is sensitive information that we may discuss, we want to keep that information confidential. We won't make any decisions in this closed session, but just a place for us to discuss. It should take 20 minutes. So for the public or those attending, hopefully we are back by 7:20 or before then. And so I know we need to make a vote for this. So someone want to make a motion, or do we just vote?
Motion to have a closed session.
I second it. All in favor?
So just, okay, so
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
there's just a motion that was seconded to go to a closed session. So it'll just take a moment to set up the breakout.
Okay, we said 20 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay. Bye.
All right, welcome back. We did forget to vote to approve the minutes from May. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes from May? Is there any corrections needed before we do that? Milen?
No, sorry, I was already voting, so never mind.
Okay, so do we have a vote to approve the minutes? By show of hands? Okay. So now is the time that we take a short bio break. So we're going to take a break and then we'll come back at 7:25 or 7:30. All right, welcome back. So before we do the case review voting, I'm just going to remind everyone of the current status of case reviews and where we all stand. So you can see your name, the cases you volunteered for. Some of these case reviews have already happened, some have not. Just think about maintaining a balance for the next few months and seeing if there's opportunity there. So I just want to share that again for the full group so that everyone can see where we're at before we add on new things to our plate. Okay, so the next item is the case reviews, assignment for the new cases. But first we have to vote on the cases to select, is that correct? So I'm just going to read out the name of the case, the charges, and then need some assistance on taking the vote. The first case, MI 2024-027. The allegations are a Rule 3 violation, a Rule 5 violation, and Rule 6 violation for Officer 1. And then for Officer 2, we have a Rule 5 violation. Who would like to vote to take this case by a show of real hands or virtual hands? See 2 votes for. Votes for no. That was 6 votes for no. The next case, MI 2024-028. This one contains a Rule 5, a Rule 1, and a Rule 6 violation for Officer 1, and also a Rule 4 violation as well. Votes to take 028. Looks like that's affirmative on everyone. The next case, MI 2024-029. Officer 1 has 1 Rule 5 allegation. Rule 5 is police authority and public trust. Votes to take 029. Votes for yes. And votes for no. Bill and Abigail. Okay, looks like the majority has it on that case. The next one, M 2024-030. There's a Rule 5 allegation for Officer 1. Votes to take that case. And votes for no. The next case, MI 2024-032. This one contains multiple allegations of Rule 6 violations, Rule 2 and Rule 3 violations against unknown officer.
Am I off or did we skip 3-1?
That was administratively closed.
Okay.
So you're right on. So MI 2024-032, allegations against unknown officer, those who vote to review this case. By show of hands. And votes for no. And the last case, MI 2024-034, Officer 1 has 2 Rule 1 violations. Votes to review this case. Okay, Chico votes for no. Is there any other business that we need to do with case reviews?
I mean, just, I think, you know, assigning, having people volunteer or be voluntold. And
I
it
wasn't
looks
keeping
like
track of the ones we voted to approve, so if you could help me on that.
I have 28, 29, and 30.
28, 29, and 30. Okay. So MI 2024-028. Do we have 3 volunteers for that case? Luna, Chico, and Abigail. Thank you. The next case, MI 2024-029. Do you have 3 volunteers for that case? You got those, Sherry?
I've got Milan, Lizzie, and Jason. Oh, Jason's
No.
shaking his head. No, sorry.
And Victor.
And
Victor,
Luna.
Lizzie, and Luna.
Oh, okay. Luna and Victor. Apologies. Thank you for the correction.
And then MI 2024-030, volunteers for that case?
Okay.
Jason, Chico, Bill, Milan.
I love their idea of there being 4 people signing up for some, so that if someone doesn't work in the schedule, we can still proceed. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. So our next agenda item is our next chief of police meeting, which is on June 24th. Was that a virtual one or in person? I think that one's in person, right? Or
That is my understanding. Obviously, if the panel wants to make it virtual, they certainly can. That's why this is on there as an agenda item, is so that people can you know, make it the format that they want it to. I mean, with the understanding that we, you know, have to talk with Redfern again about making sure that his answers are condensed, and then not being afraid to, like, interrupt if they seem like they're getting too verbose.
I personally prefer in person.
Are there any other folks you may want there outside of the chief?
I think, isn't Sterling always there? So,
Sometimes there may be a question about SWAT and they want a SWAT officer, or we need to talk to the detectives because we're not sure about this. In previous meetings, a homeless outreach team came to explain what the HOT team does, for example. So those are a couple ideas. Do we have enough questions and content for the meeting? Does everyone have like 5 burning questions that will just fill up this time and, you know, get it going? Or is it just going to be, are you running out of topics or the things that you want to talk about that you haven't had time for?
I don't think running out of topics has ever been a challenge.
I am wondering if there's someone who's a good point person for the reimagined policing plan, or if the chief is a good resource for that. I could also send an email if that's helpful.
I think the chief would be the best person for that.
Thank you, Sterling.
I just uploaded a chief of police meeting questions into the June folder. So if we want to add some questions in there, I guess that's my questions for you guys. Like if we are wanting to submit questions beforehand, I guess to get further into the conversation about Q&A, like public comment, more of the logistics, so then we can prepare ourselves and so I can post them on the website and let the public know beforehand. So I guess just to open up the floor, how do we feel about Q&A or public comment at this meeting? On a regular, we don't have it, but just thought I'd ask.
Lynn, I see your hand.
thank you. I think in general, I'm all for public comments, and potential Q&A would be great. Members of the public don't get to ask direct questions to the interim chief. Another comment I would like to make just in general is that it's still interim Chief Redfern and not Chief Redfern. So I would like to make a comment that we keep that title until we have a permanent chief. But otherwise, yes, I would be all for Q&A with limited time.
I would like to second that. I think opening it up in some capacity would be useful.
I'm pretty sure the last time we had one of these, nobody from the public showed up.
I can't remember if I'm confusing last time with the time before. I think we have had at least one member of the public having a lot of Q&A.
Yeah, I can see Q&A being maybe something that we could leave open throughout the whole meeting like we do for this all panel meeting. Public meeting, we would just have to set up maybe like a maybe the first hour just be, and this is, you know, kind of more what I'm getting into the logistics. Like, if we do have public comment, how much time are you giving? Or is there sign up required? Because I know that council does have, like, you know, are we, I guess, preparing ourselves to potentially have, you know, 10 members of the public, and how, like, 2 minutes each, that's 20 minutes. So I guess just kind of realistically looking at it, I think Q&A would be a great thing. And then if we have time at the end, maybe about 30 minutes or maybe less if possible, to then just open it up to the public and answer some Q&A questions that I know that maybe potentially I wouldn't be able to answer, but just on some thoughts on that.
Milena, see your hand.
I think we're back to the question of, you know, are our meetings like done after 2 hours, or do we accept the fact that this is an opportunity for community members to have 2 minutes with the interim chief and ask questions, and then that can go on if a lot of people show up? And I don't know, I mean, I would like that to be open and for us to discuss, but maybe it's not a good place here to discuss that. Maybe we can take it on email if that's more efficient. I don't want to lose too much time talking logistics, but I think it's important to consider. Thank you.
Just my personal views. These meetings with the chief are our time to figure out stuff that we are unsure about or things that we've seen, and we can really ask some just very specific or detailed questions, or we can ask them, why are the cops in Whole Foods, right? So we can stay with the frivolous stuff, or we can get down to just like some really nitty gritty tough questions that we only can get from that inside view. We've had 3 months between the meetings, and so like part of our job is to talk to the public. Like, what do your neighbors want to ask? What do people that you represent want to ask, right? So I think sort of opening up the floodgates, like we are the floodgates. Like, haven't you been asking people, telling them what you do? Like, I talk to people and they tell me what they want the chief to hear. Like, I don't have to tap them on the shoulder. Like, we're the ones representing the public. So we should already be having these conversations months and months between these meetings. So when we have this opportunity, I think that we could just fill up the list with things because we've talked to people, right? We don't sit in isolation and then pop out and say, oh, now we're going to talk to the chief. So hopefully there's this steady engagement between these meetings. So that's just my view on that. Elena, I see your hand.
I'm gonna push back a little bit, Victor, but last time I had at least 5 more questions that were also coming from, you know, my neighbors and community members, and I didn't have time to ask them. And so I'd like to have the community be able to, and I don't know the entire communities of Boulder personally, and I would like them to have the opportunity to ask their own questions, and knowing that I will never have enough time personally to ask all the questions that I have. And I'll be quiet.
The chief also has other opportunities for the public to access him, so we're not the gatekeepers for that. Sterling, I see your hand.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you guys are already concerned about the chief's like long-windedness in his answers and the time in general, I think having a public comment in this form isn't going to be the best to address that concern or for that concern. And I agree with Victor that, you know, I think a lot of people see you guys as representatives of the community. So I think you guys can take questions from the community and try to ask them of the chief. And the last point is, like, a lot of people might have questions that the chief won't have answers to at the time. So it'll be better, just like the format from the past, where he has access to some of the questions, so he can give you guys thoughtful answers, as opposed to, yeah, I'll look it up, or I'll ask somebody else later, because he just won't know the answers to a lot of the. I could see he might not know the answers to some of the questions that the community might ask. Thank you.
And Bill, I see your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree with you, Victor, and I wouldn't be for extending our meeting longer than the 2 hours. I think if There's community folks, they have other ways to access the chief. And after watching the city council meeting, I have a lot of questions about the stops data and the use of force data. And, you know, it seemed like we filled the whole question time at our last meeting, even without public comment. So I wouldn't want that to get in the way of us getting our questions answered either.
Thank you, Bill. So it looks like we have some time to finalize this, right? So hopefully we can continue this over email, Sherry.
I was actually wondering if you guys just want to vote whether to do some form of public comment or not. I just don't want to get into, you know, Open Records Act violations with, or Open Meetings Act violations with too much email conversation.
So the vote is, do you want to allow public comments in our next chief of police meeting?
Quick question, if we vote. Shoot, I think I might be frozen. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you. Or we could.
Go ahead. You're muted, Lizzie.
I think we just have a bad connection. Can you guys hear me now?
I think she's freezing a little bit.
Yes. All right, I'm gonna switch to my phone. I'll be right back.
Sterling, did you have another?
Yeah. Do you think it'd be possible to gather a question during, from the Q&A that we can be presented to the next meeting? You know, I know it's 3 months away, but that way people can just type in their questions. The community can type in their questions, and then they can be asked by panel members during the next meeting.
I like that idea, so things don't get lost. I know Lizzie's trying to. Okay, Lizzie, you can try your question again.
After you unmute.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. I may have missed some discussion that answered this question, but if we go ahead and vote now and we say we do want to allow public comment, if it becomes an issue with 20 people showing up for comment, I assume we can vote at a future meeting to change that decision. Is that correct? Like we can adjust anytime, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's why this
Great.
is a topic on the agenda, so that this opportunity to meet with the chief is how the panel as a whole envisions it.
Great. And the last 2 meetings we've had the public there, but not given time for public comment. Okay. Thanks.
So just by a show, any more questions, Luna?
Yeah, real quick. I know that in other places there's like a sign up. So if people want to have like public comment or questions, I don't know if we have a mechanism for that, but then we understand like how many people will be showing up. Selena, do you know anything about that?
I do, yeah. I would have to look more into the logistics of that mechanism. I know that council uses that, and so it's just about asking and learning that platform and just moving forward with that, I think would be probably the easier thing. Yeah, so I
And
can,
if that makes more work for you, but
yeah, no worries.
And the chief meetings are 2 hours long, correct?
That's what they have in.
Okay. So the vote, would we like to add a public comment section to our next chief of police meeting? And this public comment section could be anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. By a show of hands, who would like to do that for our next meeting? That's 4 for yes. Votes for no. And that's 4 for no. We do have some members not present, so maybe they can chime in via email. Is that possible?
Abigail?
It's not in the bylaws yet.
I would like to have their opinion, yeah. Sorry, Abigail.
I don't think it would be a violation of the law. But we don't have anything in our bylaws against it if we do want every panel member to weigh in.
Okay, well, we're stuck at a 4-4 vote and we need to get some input from other panel members. So we'll just continue this behind the scenes.
Okay, I can send out an email to
Okay,
them, or I don't know if you'd rather.
yeah, I'll put it on the list. Once. And then our independent monitor report is next.
Let me share my screen. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, well, the June 2024 Boulder Police Oversight Panel Meeting, Independent Police Monitors Report. So the case file review data for May 2024, I think most of you are not surprised about this, but we did 3 case reviews last month. So it's great to be doing that again. And I would also like to share that every new member of the panel participated in case reviews. So it's great to be like back on that. They were done at the end of the month, so they are still all waiting for BPD dispositions on those 3. And as of before, we just voted to review 3 more cases. We have 13 cases that will be up for review as they move through the system. And cases that have been completed since May 1st, 2024. I can't see my screen because all of your lovely faces are in front of it. Just give me a moment. Okay. MI 2023-018. 2 officers responded to a call from a mother. She alleged that her juvenile son had threatened her via text message, and she did not want her son in their home. The officers attempted to speak with the juvenile. He ignored their instructions to stop and brushed past them to enter the home. The officers grabbed him to prevent him from entering the home, and all 3 landed on the top platform of the stairs. And the mother complained about the use of force used on the juvenile son. The allegations against Officer 1 and 2 were Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders. General Order 225, use of force, that they used force against the juvenile. For both officers, I recommended that the allegation be exonerated, and the department agreed. For MI 2023-028, Officer 1 during a camp cleanup operation encountered the complainant who refused to pack up her campsite or provide her name. Sergeant 1 arrived to assist, and the complainant continued to refuse to cooperate. When they reached to grab her, she struggled against their attempts to control her and threw Sergeant 1 to the ground and fled. She returned and was apprehended by additional officers. And while handcuffing her, Officer 2 referred to her as bro, and Sergeant 1 used a male pronoun while instructing officers. The complainant objected and shouted that she had been misgendered, and several officers on scene used male pronouns in reference to the complainant when they spoke amongst themselves. So regarding the allegations for Officer 1, Rule 1 allegation, violation of General Order 101, unbiased policing, gender identity, displayed transphobia during his interaction with the complainant. I recommended that allegation be exonerated, and the department agreed. A Rule 6 allegation for Officer 1, use of force, General Order 225, used force on the complainant. I also recommended that allegation be exonerated, and the department agreed. For Officer 2, Rule 4, respect for others, misgendered the complainant. Officer 2, that was exonerated based on my recommendation and the department's determinations. For Sergeant 1, allegation of Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders, General Order 101, unbiased policing, gender identity, displayed transphobia during his interaction with the complainant. I recommended that allegation be exonerated, and the department agreed with that. For the Sergeant 1's Rule 4 allegation, respect for other, misgendered the complainant, I recommend that allegation be not sustained, and the department agreed with that recommendation. And for Rule 6, use of force for the sergeant, General Order 225, use of force positioned his arm or hand around the complainant's neck. My recommendation was not sustained, and the department determined that it was an exonerated finding. For Rule 6, use of force, General Order 225, use force and or threaten the complainant with a taser. I recommended an exonerated finding, and the department agreed with that. And when I first classified this case, and then again at the closure of the case, I recommended that the department look into providing additional training and support for their officers regarding gender identity and preferred pronoun usage. The department agreed with that recommendation, and the interim chief recently shared with me a potential training module created with Out Boulder to address this topic with department members. For case MI 2024-020, Officer 1 was assigned to investigate allegations that a man sent threatening email messages to a car repair shop. Officer 1 contacted the complainant, who admitted sending the emails, and during their conversation, the complainant voiced concerns about the service he received from the repair shop. Officer 1 informed the complainant that his complaints against the repair shop were civil in nature, and eventually arrested the complainant for menacing and harassment. The complainant alleged that Officer 1 did not conduct a sufficient investigation. The allegation against Officer 1 was a Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders, failed to conduct a sufficient investigation. And that was, my recommendation was that be founded in accordance with General Order 120-1, Section 8, and the department agreed with that recommendation. And for MI 2024-023, a person submitted an anonymous web complaint alleging that Officer 1 ignored their request for his business card. Body-worn camera captured the interaction, and no request for a business card is heard. That allegation against the officer was a Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders. General Order 200, discretion, arrest standards, and enforcement action, failed to provide a business card upon request. My recommendation was that case be closed unfounded in accordance with General Order 120-1, Section 8, and the department agreed with that. Regarding the case statistics for the month of May, I classified 8 cases. 7 of those were classified as misconduct allegations, 0 serious misconduct, 1 community inquiry, 0 community feedback, 0 conflict facilitation process. I observed 5 interviews. There were 0 critical incidents requiring a scene response. And I determined 4 cases to be deemed thorough and complete, and the police department closed 4 cases during that time period. So our open docket as of June 5th, there are 37 cases. 32 of those are classified, and 5 of those still await classification as of June 5th. Given our 2023 cases that are still open, there are 3 of them at this point, and they are all in chain of command review, and MI 2023-0-034 and -035 will also be coming to the panel when chain of command is complete. The update I have regarding the December fatal officer involved shooting is now I have been given a hard drive that includes all of the evidence for that case, but currently the force review panel has not been scheduled. I anticipate that it's going to happen sometime in July, but I will keep the panel apprised of any developments and timelines for that to review. For the month of May, the community engagement that I did was, first of all, Victor King set up a meeting with the Boulder County Public Defenders. So we went and we spoke with them, gave them some information about the work that we do, and answered questions. And I thought it went reasonably well. It was great to hear the questions that the members from the public defender community had. Also, on May 18th, I co-hosted a public safety listening session with the Center for People with Disabilities, and that was a really amazing event where members from the fire department and police department were able to hear concerns and begin to workshop some ideas to make sure that we are putting in place the policies and training and options so that we reduce, hopefully eliminate communication barriers and really can address the concerns of that very vulnerable population. So since then, we've had some follow-up meetings also, and it felt like the beginning of a really good relationship that's starting from a place of how can we do this as best as we can. So I received a lot of words of appreciation from that community. So that was really, that was the highlight of my month. And I mentioned this to some of you, but I went to the police department myself to do roll call briefing trainings to patrol officers to help them better understand the civilian oversight system and answer questions that they had. So that also was, I thought, very helpful for everyone involved. And that's my report or the official report. I also wanted to share that NACOL annual conference is open for registration. So I think we can send up to 2 panel members. So it is on the agenda. The dates will be October 13th through the 17th, and that is going to be held in Tucson. So if you're interested or you want to learn more, reach out to myself, and Milen and Soledad went last year. Who went the year before? I think Hadassah was one person.
Yep, Hadassah went before. We'll need a new co-chair, right? So if you're interested in being a co-chair, then going to the conference may help or not help. But you know, we have enough to send 2 folks there. So check your calendars and let us know. If not, I know some folks may want to go again. So
We do appreciate that taking an entire week out of one schedule is a really serious lift and commitment. So let us know though, and I've gone probably 4 or 5 times, so I can definitely answer questions, and it's a ways away, so we have time, but I wanted it to be on people's radars. And also reminder that we are in budget season, and I think it's due at the end of the week. So panel requests for budget, please get them to me as soon as possible.
Can I ask a question about that? Is there like a document that's organized, or do we need to start that process? Has there been any sort of like gathering around a list of requests?
no, I mean, there's like things we do for community engagement. We've hired FAIR to do consulting. There's food for the events, like some of those things are included. And then there's also like, well, what do we want to do in the next year? You know, thinking about having an event where 100 people could show up versus 10 people. Sometimes we have to rent venues, or sometimes we use county spaces. But it's really just a broad, nothing that's been written down on paper before.
Thanks.
So ask big, right? Ask for 30,000 and you'll get 15, right? Don't ask for 15 and then always go big. Are there any items that folks want to talk about that they didn't get a chance to submit, or they want to add to the agenda? Now is the time for that. Or anything that's come up during the meeting? Milen?
I have a quick question. I think we a few of us had asked, or it was brought up somewhere somehow, a response to what was said at the last, was it the last city council, with the police report, with the chief of police, and some of the comments that were made at that time. I would like to hear, maybe this is the right place to respond maybe to some of the comments and expectations from the panel that were voiced that didn't seem to be in alignment with what the panel is for. I'm just curious about how people reacted to that. Does anybody have anything to say? I'll just, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Lizzie.
I was just gonna say, maybe you want to kick us off. I'd love to hear what you're.
Yeah, there are 2 things that I would like to address. Is one, when we have 2 co-chairs, so it would be good for the city council to remember there are 2 co-chairs, Victor and Soledad, and 2, I'm having a little bit of an issue, and maybe it's a misunderstanding on my part, but why would it's a question that I have for all of us is, why should the panel contact city council members? Is that a role? Or it seems to me, I'm sorry, I watched this a while ago, so my memory is a little fuzzy, but it seems to me that it was asked that the city council, the police oversight panel report back or contact or talk to the city council members, and I'm a little troubled by that, because I think that we're independent from the city council since we're under Noria now. So I would like to have clarity on what we are supposed to do with that. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yes, it does. And I think I heard Victor say at the beginning of the meeting that all communication should go through the co-chair. So would that include if city council as well, Victor, from your perspective? Like, I don't think it's wrong for the city council to want to talk to the co-chairs. I just want to talk to them as a member.
But that was more about like city council members texting panel members to get our attention versus like sending us an email, you know, to get our attention. But the meeting that she was talking about, you know, we didn't know it was taking place. No one had asked us any questions. We were just an agenda item sort of out of the blue.
Got it.
And in general, the idea that city council is interested in the work that you're doing, and that they want to hear more about the work that the panel is doing and the way that the panel experiences, you know, the work. I think it's a good opportunity, especially since we're back doing case reviews. So by the time sometime later this year that we're before them, I think we'll have a lot better foundation of the sort of cases that are coming in more recently.
I think
Sherry, would that be your role to like give Victor a heads up that the city council is putting this panel on the agenda? Like, who would alert us to it?
Oh, I would.
Okay.
I would. And like I said, it's something that I expected once, because the agendas are done, or the city council agendas are done far in advance, that I expect that we'll have like 2 months, if not more, lead time.
I think my feeling was that it was asked for us to make some, you know, to be available to the city council. And I'm just feeling like we're volunteers mostly. And so the amount of time that we can spend should be focused on case reviews and being community oriented rather than city council. That's my take on that, considering the amount of work that we're doing already. But I might be wrong. I mean, that's why I'm opening this conversation, because I want to hear what everybody is thinking too, and their understanding. I may have misunderstood.
Oh, I think you're good. We all have, you know, entitled to our opinions. In the past, the panel has never really come to city council to sit in front of them or give a report. So it's almost like correcting misinformation, myth busting. Like they have no idea what we've been doing, you know, how hard it's been. The only meetings they have with us have been like very contentious, or they're just not the best, right? So if we are able to talk to the city council, Nuria's in that same audience. She sits right to the right of them. And so we'd also be able to reach her as well. And I don't think it's an obligation, but it's just part of the transparency and just letting them know, you know, what's going on, versus seeing them once a year or seeing them never. having some sort of frequency for that.
Thank you, Victor.
If there are any other questions or responses on this one, did you have something, Sherry, or anyone else?
Oh, I was just looking to see if I thought Chico might be about to say something, but I couldn't tell if I was reading that correctly.
No, I'm good.
The next item on our agenda is the public comment. I do see we have one member of the public here. Selena, can you help me out?
You let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. Do you have the timer? I'm sorry. And then just do a review about the public comment, like rules and stuff like that.
So every member of the public will get 2 minutes to comment, and then the panel members, if they choose to, can also give a response.
Okay, Lynn, you are unmuted.
Yeah, I'm not very impressed with what's going on with the POP and with the police in Boulder in general, going way back to John Benet Ramsey. Like, this is just, in my view, a corrupted police community. And I want to cite a number of things. I'm really still upset about my stuff being ripped off by city employees in the municipal building when I turned my head 4 feet from my property and someone came and took it within 15 seconds of when I removed my laptop from the bag. Like, this is outrageous that, one, I didn't get to talk to the person. I didn't want to prosecute him. I wanted to talk to him. I was not allowed to. I was never allowed to. And that should never be the case. We need community policing in this community and restorative justice. Have you ever heard of the Maoris, Maori from New Zealand? That's what we need here in Boulder. That is the kind of policing that really works well. Now, another situation, Alator. I understand from Michael Dougherty from the newspaper, the guy that saw the woman had a gun, didn't report it to the front desk. The police came to escort her out, but the front desk didn't know she had a gun. Why doesn't our community know that when you're in a freaking rec center, you can't have a gun in there, and if you see a gun, you report it? That is a huge problem for your community, Sherry and everyone, that they don't even feel compelled to report that they saw a freaking gun. This is outrageous. That woman never had a chance. Of course, she was justifiably killed after that. The point is, she was humiliated into erupting. And if that's what the police do, that is not de-escalation, that's provocation. I'm not saying that she was a great upstanding citizen. I'm saying that this situation was wrong. Very, very wrong. Just as wrong as when I was thrown out of the courtroom for staring at Sam Carter after he shot the elk 3 blocks from me on Mapleton Hill. That's a problem.
10 seconds remaining.
There's a lot of problems with policing in Boulder. I can't tell you how many, and I sure don't hear about them in these short little narratives you do about a case review. You need to really discuss it, bring it out, bring the community in, have a back and forth. You know, I'm sorry that I have to be, obnoxious about this, but I don't see anything happening after years. And then when something happens to me, oh my God, I couldn't even talk to the person, and I didn't want to prosecute them, and they didn't get prosecuted anyway. Done.
Thank you, and your time is up. Would anyone like to respond or comment? I'll just say I do hear you, Lynn, and I appreciate, your presence and, your passion. Well, thank you everyone for attending this meeting. This brings our June meeting to a close. Remember to check your emails for some things. Otherwise, thank you so much and have a great rest of your night.
Right, everyone.